Hello, kia ora, g'day, I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube with your Australia forecast for the next 7 days ahead. And we kick off with the satellite imagery here for Friday, the 30th of January. Nearly at the end of the month already, that's just crazy. Not a huge amount going on around Australia. In fact, it's very similar to yesterday. You've still got this line of showers, this convergence line, mostly south of South Australia, but there are a few showers and thunderstorms that are passing through. The thunderstorms are very isolated, but there are a couple here. You can see a few more in the northwest corner of Victoria, the southwest corner of New South Wales. A fair bit of cloud around at the moment, but it's not producing much in the way of wet weather. So a couple of showers are in that forecast, but not much. We've got low pressure in the Coral Sea, a few thunderstorms with that offshore. The tropical cyclones disappeared off the satellite imagery, although the cloud can be seen here north of New Zealand, but Norfolk Island probably noticing the humidity today as that system has come on through. And the usual thunderstorms up here. We've got a lot of low pressure stuck around northern Australia at the moment. And as you're going to see, it's messy next week. Makes it hard for me as a forecaster and frustrating as well, because I can't necessarily lock in what is going to happen there. So low pressure all around northern parts of the country, a couple of centres around that area there. And we've also got low pressure down around South Australia, pretty weak area of low pressure, but between that lower pressure and the high over the Great Australia Bight, that's why you've got that convergence where the winds are meeting and the cloud and a few showers that are mostly offshore. So that kind of stays around today, not a lot of difference. The brighter shading to the south, that is all high pressure. So the high pressure belt is still south of the country, but it's affecting eastern areas as well. And that's why you've got a bit of a breeze off the sea. And it's not as hot for those of you in coastal parts of the southeast. Temperature maps, we'll just have a quick look at the extreme heat again. This is later today. So you're seeing this large zone affecting a number of places, coming right down to about Whyalla, over towards Ceduna, and even coming down to about Adelaide, that heat. It's also coming into northern parts of Victoria, but it's worth noting 20 to 25 degrees cooler on the coastline. So big difference between coastal Victoria and northern Victoria. And it's a similar story with New South Wales. The coastal side, significantly cooler than those of you over in the west. Jump to tomorrow and you can start to see that southerly change moving in, and a more refreshing change comes into Melbourne, Whyalla, all the other towns and places in between. And similar story into Victoria as well. Definitely a change coming. But if you're on the border of Victoria and New South Wales, it may not be a noticeable or much of a noticeable change, but the temperatures are dropping a little bit here and there, but the heat obviously pushes further up around parts of New South Wales, and it's still up here in the northeastern side of South Australia. And as we get to Sunday, what a change that is. Temperatures down right across Victoria, across almost all of South Australia, and clearing from much of New South Wales. But if you're in Burke or Quilpie or around places like Charleville, it's still going to be pretty hot going into Sunday, but definitely a significant temperature change coming through by Sunday. Thank goodness. So here is, back to the forecast maps, here is Saturday, tomorrow. So you've still got the heat pushing out around the ACT, around parts of New South Wales, and with that wind, strong or brisk easterly, blowing through parts of Victoria, southeasterly going into South Australia, that makes the fire risk more extreme. Only a few showers, the pale blue there right at the very bottom of the scale, 0.2. So barely anything at all. And with that heat, it'll just evaporate. But you do notice the blue arrow indicating a colder airflow that is starting to develop later into Saturday. Still got the low pressure zone up here in the Coral Sea, and also this low here around the Gulf of Carpentaria. So look at Saturday's setup and jump to Sunday. Possible tropical cyclone, but I've got to really emphasize the word possible. And the reason why is because the modeling we're showing you here, GFS from America, shows a tropical cyclone. The Joint Typhoon Warning Centre also says there's a moderate risk of that turning into a tropical cyclone. But the European modeling and other models are not showing a storm at all. Still shows some low pressure there and some offshore rain. Most of the rain here and the wind offshore, although it does just brush the coastline. So it's one of those forecasts where I'm going to have to say keep up to date with the Bureau of Meteorology over the weekend. We don't do weekend videos at this stage. So things are likely going to change up there. We're not really locking that in, but there is a potential for some heavy rain, certainly in that part of the country. Now back down to the south here in more populated areas, the change, the red arrows indicating that heat boundary is going northwards. except for just the southeast part of Queensland and around the northeast corner of New South Wales. In those areas, it actually may heat up before things start to cool down. But the southerly definitely here over Tasmania, the polar boundary right up and over you. So temperatures are right down on Sunday. It'll be a cold day in some exposed areas. Maybe not so cold on the northern coastline, but southern coastline should be quite cold and windy with wet weather pushing in through there. Showers and patchy kind of rain in the southeast corner of Australia. And we've still got that wind, that southeasterly wind blowing all the way through to South Australia and then Western Australia, hardly talking about you at the moment. Easterly winds pushing out to the coastline, mainly dry. The pale blue in the southern coastline, just a couple of showers, but remember you've got high pressure right nearby. So the energy is up in the tropics. So again, Monday, that might not be there on Monday. That's not locked in, it's a 50-50. Flip a coin for that one. So low pressure certainly in the north, but whether it's a tropical cyclone or not, hard to lock in. Not necessarily a huge amount of rain showing up here, the usual thunderstorms. And we've got some wet weather sliding further up the eastern side of New South Wales up into the southeast corner of Queensland. And so the temperatures drop back. You'll feel that more refreshing change coming through now to these northeastern areas of New South Wales and that lower corner of Queensland. High pressure over Tasmania. And as the high moves eastwards, the heat sinks southwards. And so Perth, Fremantle, you'll feel the heat on Monday. On Tuesday, temperatures may actually ease back a wee bit around Perth, only a little bit, but it's just enough of a change in the wind flow to maybe affect that. And now you're seeing more heat pushing back down into South Australia, but it's more in the remote areas or smaller population northwards, well north of Adelaide, that's for sure. Adelaide has not got the same excessive heat on Tuesday of next week that you've got at the moment. High pressure is nearby, so the winds will be light. And around Victoria, New South Wales, it's a northeasterly or northerly quarter actually. Sort of snakes around a wee bit in a couple of directions. So it's a northerly flow coming down, affecting Canberra as well. Still got those showers around the coastline. And the thunderstorms in Queensland do expand next week. So again, tropical cyclone may be there, may not be there. Either way, we're expecting low pressure around the tropical north. And we're likely to see these thunderstorms popping up inland, especially inland. But maybe around Brisbane, you've got some heavier showers showing up too. Dry in the southeast. By Wednesday, a couple of showers popping up, possibly around Victoria. It's a long way out to lock in a shower, but it's possible that it could be developing there. And this map here, sort of around New South Wales, kind of sums up how next week is looking as far as the chances of rain. It's a bit patchy. It's not necessarily huge volumes of rain coming through, but it's a wide risk area that might get those showers. So not super isolated necessarily, but not everyone in that zone will get wet weather. So that's worth pointing out. The heat is dropping back down again as well, and you can still see the showers and thunderstorms, especially around Queensland, higher risk of showers there and around more populated areas, the Sunshine Coast, Brisbane itself, getting a chance there of some wet weather, whereas the top end, and Catherine, a few thunderstorms around, but not necessarily overly wet. We'll have to wait and see what goes on with that low, because that could change the rain forecast going through next week. Thursday of next week, the low pressure zone you see up here over the Kimberley and over the top half of the Northern Territory is a little bit like what the European modelling is saying for that low. It's kind of a large stretched out area that could produce some areas of rain, but not a tropical cyclone. So that's why the question mark hangs up there. And believe me, I find it frustrating. I like to be able to be as sure of myself as I can possibly be. But this is a messy weather forecast next week, not just in the tropics, but right across Queensland and New South Wales. It's what I would call messy. And I've been saying that for a few days now, that the showers you're seeing showing up are likely to move around with each update that we put out because of, it's kind of the high pressure zones aren't overly big and powerful, and the low pressure zones are messy in their shape, and that makes everything else around it kind of tricky to lock in. But what we are seeing is certainly a higher risk of downpours popping up as we go through next week, and by Friday of next week, again, same kind of story. So I think we are likely to be seeing thunderstorms growing around New South Wales, Queensland and the Northern Territory next week. I think that's on the cards, but not so likely for Victoria and South Australia. Drier for you, and certainly drier for Western Australia. So I've got two rain maps, the American one first. You can see the heavy rain zone up here to the north, line of convergence coming into Queensland, and the showers mostly in the top half and eastern sides of New South Wales, and the dry zone is mostly down in the south. Compare that with the European modelling. Again, dry mostly in the south, heaviest rain in the north, although that looks a little different because of the two different models trying to work out if a cyclone will form or not. And it's not quite as wet in New South Wales, although plenty of wet weather around Queensland and that eastern side of New South Wales. So that is the forecast, even a little bit of wet weather into Victoria and the western side of Tassie. That's all from me. A bit messy, I get that, but we'll hopefully clear it up a bit more for you on Monday. Have yourselves a great weekend.